Well, there you go. The title says it all. The Battle Royale. Cessna 172 versus the DCH-1 Chipmunk. Welcome to the superpilotish channel. My name's Graham Wilson, and today I'm going to be talking about a few little differences, well, some maybe not so little, between taking off and landing in a Cessna 172 or a Chipmunk. And I'll be talking in my basement about that. So, yeah, we got the old whiteboard out today again, and this show actually comes out. It's a request, and like I say at the Super Pilotish channel, I take requests, sure. So we're gonna start off. Now, I figured I would pick the battle royale between. We'll say if you were gonna compare the two airplanes with ice cream. The Cessna 172, vanilla. And, and that's the one thing they always describe the Cessna 172 as. It's vanilla. It's like, it's nothing that great, but it's still ice cream. And I'd say, I don't know what you'd call a Chipmunk, Tutti Frutti or something. But anyways, the difference between, I'll start off with the taking off. Now, I guess if you're a little bit pilot-ish or super pilot-ish at all, you'll know the difference between a tail dragger or a conventional gear airplane and a tricycle gear airplane. Okay, quick explanation here on the whiteboard. So here's your Cessna 172. What do we got here? I shouldn't have wiped it out. I should have just kept it. Okay, here's our Cessna 172. There we go. It's got its propellers up here. We got the nose wheel here, and you got two main gears there. I shouldn't have wiped that out. So we got the DCH-1 Chipmunk, and it's got a couple wheels up in the front, couple in the front, and one in the back. So I have my KD-12X Mark II is set up to be a tail dragger or a conventional landing gear plane. So yeah, with the 172, it's a piece of cake to take off, really. As long as you keep it on the center line, steering with your feet, away she goes. I've even had it where one of the students I was teaching was like, oh, I'm worried about taking off, and they're yanking up the nose too soon and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, you don't even have to do that, So you do a demo, watch this. You have it trimmed up for the takeoff position, and just give it full power. And I just sat back like this and steered with my feet, and then the plane got fast, and it just took off on its own. So it's not that. It was a pretty calm day, but I've done that numerous times just as an example, and it's it just wants to go flying. But Chipmunk's a little bit different because it's got all kinds of weird, like the Cessna 172, very stable airplane, great plane all around for training, or if you own one. Well, there's a reason that the Cessna 172 is the biggest, the most sold airplane in the world in history. It's just very versatile, and it's good vanilla ice cream. So with the Chipmunk, now when we're taking off, there's all kinds of weird stuff that happens. Okay, it was designed. It was actually designed. The propeller or the engine is mounted 4 degrees off from center, so it naturally puts a whole bunch of yaw onto the airplane. And if you don't know what yaw is, it's getting kind of piloty here. But so if you got your airplane, there's three movements that the airplane does. So we got your pitch, so the pitch is up and down, and then it will roll. And then the yaw that you talk about, that's when the rudder kind of moves over here. It just kind of rotates the plane this way. Okay. I'll get right into there. Okay, there's your yaw. So there you go. If you're in your car driving around, you're yawing around in your car because it doesn't bank on you. Okay, so that's one of the things that you really have to control on the Chipmunk. It was designed to be unstable and a little bit more of a handful to fly, because when it was getting designed back in the 50s, or actually late 40s. The next step from there would be going up to something bigger, like a T6 Texan or a Harvard here in Canada, or and then you're going on to flying Mustangs and Spitfires and stuff, and they got all kinds of torque, all kinds of horsepower, all kinds of wacky stuff, and you better be able to use your feet. And you got to do that on Chipmunk. So they make it specifically. They made it specifically a little bit harder to fly, and it is. So when you're taking off, you're it's got strange controls on there. I did a little video before talking about how the Chipmunk was weird. Now I've been in the process of kind of getting checked out in one because before now I'd never flown a tail dragger. So I've done 3 flights in it. I was supposed to go up possibly last weekend. That didn't quite work out. So unfortunately, my flights have been kind of spaced out because of bad weather, and I'm feeling the learning effects of that because you forget stuff, right? Even even really seasoned people, if you're learning something new, I mean, I got quite a few. Like I don't know how many hours do I got? About 3,300 hours flying time. So you're doing something new, you got to get used to it, and it takes time for your brain to do that, and you'll forget things. So that's my excuse. I'm sticking to it. So, anyways, when you're taking off in a Cessna or in the Chipmunk, you can't just give it the power and it takes off on its own. You got to actually control it. You're using your feet a lot to keep it. Hey, let's call this little crack in the workbench. That's my center line. Hey, not bad. Look at that. Whoa, I'm sinking into the ground. No. Okay, there I'm on my center line here with my crooked wings. Awesome. And yeah. So when you give it the power, and because the Chipmunk, the propeller actually goes the opposite way, depending on how you're looking at it. We'll say clockwise, counterclockwise, whatever. It goes the opposite way to most planes that are made in North America. So yeah, so when you're used to putting on some right rudder when you give it the gas for 172, there's all these other weird. I don't want to get too technical, but there's all these other weird forces that happen with the propeller. How much air is it biting over here? How much torque is going on this? And then do all this funny thing about rotational torque and forces applied on a rotating body go 90 degrees to this. So basically, you can anticipate that you're going to need a lot of left rudder to keep this thing straight down our center line. But you forget that because you're like, oh, what is this? It's got a stick. The throttle's over here with the left hand, right hand's on the stick. It has a hand brake, which is below the throttle over there, and the flaps. You got to switch hands and use your right hands for flaps and stuff. So your kind of hands are all over the place, and sometimes you hold the stick back. You should always be having the stick back as much as possible, and it's you got to hold it with your legs in between your legs. So you're holding the stick back with your legs, and you're doing all kinds of weird stuff, manipulating all the controls instead of the 172 where you just push in the knob and hang out. It'll take off. So it's a little bit different. Yeah. So when you're doing that, I mean, the last time I was up there, Dave, the guy who was getting me checked out on this, he was kind of I freaked him out in the back seat because he was I think I don't know, we were yawing all over. I was kind of I wasn't like screaming off the runway to the right, but I just didn't give enough left rudder. And yeah, so I was off the center line quite a bit. And then I brought the tail up. And if you want to bring the tail up to speed up, you go like this. So you give it full power, and there's all kinds of weird yaw and stuff. And then you bring the tail up like this so that you speed up, and then you take off. But once the tail's coming up, you actually have to put the stick forward to force that tail up to pitch it forward, and you got to hold it so you can't go too far forward. Yeah, some people, you can have a propeller strike that way. So you just got to get it to this right proper attitude, which I'm still not used to visually looking out the window. It's supposed to look like this. I'm like, I don't know. And yeah, so we kind of went up and we were yawing all over the place. Once you're doing that, you're taking this disc of the propeller and turning it, so you're getting I don't know. It's like if you turn your handlebars on your bicycle too fast and you're going slow, it'll just make you go over. So same thing with a propeller on an airplane. It'll make you do something weird if you just have that rotating body in the front and move it. So I was kind of all over the place there for taking off. And then when you get there and then you speed it up, and then you can just kind of it speeds up. It just kind of wants to take off on its own, climb out at 85 miles an hour. Way you go. Once you're up in the air, all these planes they act kind of the same. I found that in the air, the Chipmunk, I haven't done the math or looked in the book about it, but it flies kind of like I would say the amount that you can glide with the engine out, it's about the same as a 172. So that's pretty cool. I thought it would sink like a rock, but it didn't. So I overshot my field that I was shooting for. But anyways, I'll get her next time. Yeah, it's up in the air. Chipmunk's a really nice plane. Okay, so now we're coming down to landing. We are going to go over. Okay, standard instructor landing diagram number 1 that every instructor does. But it's what you do. So, and I've done it, hundreds of times. So I must be I don't know, maybe I might have done it over 1,000. But here we go. Here's our runway. Boom. Look at that. Looks like a nice flat runway. Perfect. And what we're going to do is, I always tell people, when you're coming into land, you want to aim at a spot right there. So you're coming down here to land. There you go. That is your approach phase. You're coming in there. And once you get to this little certain height there, you're going to go to idle power so that you bring your, we'll say idle power. Yeah, so you just you're going to have some power on here to do whatever speed and rate of descent you want to aim towards this point. Idle power, and then so you kind of round out here. Okay, you're rounding off, and that's where you're going from kind of a nose down attitude like this. That's exaggeration. I wouldn't land like that. Going down, and then you cut your power idle, and then you just kind of level it off flat. They call that the round out. Some people call that the flare, but the proper term is round out. Flare is kind of a different type thing. But hey, to each his own. As long as you know what you're doing, then your plane's going to float along like this, a little bit more, and because you don't have any power on, your plane will start sinking. So you're just nice and level, like you'd be flying around through the air, but you don't have any power, so it wants to go down. And when you land, you're going to touch on a Cessna 172. You're going to try to hold it off as much as possible. And here's our 172. Nice. And then you touch down on your main wheels here with your nose wheel off the ground, kind of doing a wheelie. Ideally, the perfect time to do that is when you absolutely run out of lift. Stall warning horn is blaring off, and you run out of lift exactly at the same time that your main wheels touch, but no one ever manages to do that. But it's what you shoot for. And there you go. That's your standard. So you got your approach, round out. They call this the hold off phase, and then that's the touchdown. Now, that's the 172. Everybody's used to that. But, and we're getting down when we're talking about the Chipmunk, because it's a tail dragger, this is where I'm still having some trouble. So I'm kind of glad that I got, well, I wouldn't say trouble, but it's, all of us pilots like beat ourselves up because we don't do perfect landings. So it's kind of like they're safe and everything pretty much, but yeah, so what you would do instead of holding it off like that and then touching down on the main wheels, what I've been trying to do is a 3-point landing. So they call that a 3-point landing, is when your wheel's up in the front and the wheel in your back, they touch all at the exact same time. 3 points. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So that's a 3-point landing. There's another way of doing it. They call it a wheel landing, where you come down and you just touch the main wheels, and then you pull your power off, and then slowly let that go back, the tail go back. But If you can do the 3-point landing, that's best for if you're landing on a grass strip or some airplanes. Like if you've ever seen if you're going to be doing, oh, hey, Chad, glad tax season's over for you, man. Yeah, so if you're landing something like, if you've ever seen a Corsair and, they're landing on aircraft carriers back in World War II, yeah, they have to land at that 3-point landing because the propeller is so gigantic on those things. The actually interesting story about the I don't know if I told you guys before, but interesting story about the Corsair, the World War II plane. The reason they had those wings that kind of bent it down and went out a bit was to accommodate the bigger propeller on the front. And I actually I was sitting on an airplane flying back from well, where was I going from? It was Jamaica to Havana, I think it was. Anyways, yeah, I think it was Jamaica back to Havana. And so I was just sitting it was a long story, but I ended up being on this airplane. And there was a guy, American guy, he was from Ohio. And he said, I mentioned at the time that I was thinking about learning how to fly a plane. And so this was like years ago. And he said, "Oh yeah, I used to build planes back in World War II, in Ohio." And then I did check out later that there was a plant. I think it was I want to say like the Firestone plant. No, what was it? Anyways, one of those industrial plants in Ohio. They converted it over to making these Corsairs. And he got the job of being a foreman when he was like 16 or something like that because he said he was like 16, 18, I forget. And because he knew what perpendicular meant. So when you have the wing was curved, I'm way off topic here, but I don't care. It's a super pilotish channel. So if you're looking at a F4 Corsair, here we go. You got a great big propeller. And the wings kind of come out like this. They go like that. That, and then you got your wheels down here. Okay, so that's your Corsair, right? So right here, I think the wheels were either maybe inboard a bit more there. Let's try that. We'll say the wheels are here. I forget exactly. But where the wing actually curved like that, can you see that? So it's got like a little curve. Everyone was screwing up the rivets because they kept going down. They were going rivet, 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 sounding like a frog rivet. And then by the time they got to this curve, they put it at the same angle and it didn't go in straight. So his boss at the plant was getting all pissed off because they had to drill out all these rivets and they were trying to get these planes built. And so the guy he said, yeah, it's like perpendicular. So like say if it's curved like that, it's like flat on top. And then so you have to have it 90 degrees. Oh, it was the tangent. That was it, not perpendicular, or perpendicular to the tangent of the curve. Anyways, he took that in school. He remembered it, and he demonstrated to everybody this is how you do it. And there we go. And the Americans won the Second World War. There we go. That's a good happy ending, right? Yeah. So getting back to landing our tail dragger. Okay, so when we're coming in like this, the weird thing that I'm having a little bit of trouble with is for any pilot flying any new airplane, when you're looking out the window, that makes a big difference on how you land. It's sometimes for the Chipmunk, it's got like a really long nose. And so if it comes up too high, you can't see directly in front of you. If you ever see those fighter planes, like, I don't know, Mustangs and Spitfires and like Corsair I was talking about, or even those biplanes, Stearman biplanes that they trained in where the pilot would sit in the back, when the nose comes out, you cannot see directly in front of them. That's why, unfortunately, sometimes at air shows, you'll see YouTube videos of an old World War II plane just plowing right into some plane in front of them because you can't see. And so that's why when you do taxi, you got to do S-turns. You look out the side as you zig and zag back and forth they always zigzag down the taxiway. So anyways, Um, yeah, so we're coming into land. This is all the same. Okay, you're coming down here at your proper approach speed. The one thing about another thing too is that it's real easy to overspeed the flaps on the Chipmunk. It seems like that there's not a lot of leeway there to come in. You want to approach at 75 miles per hour, but you only got like a 10-mile-per-hour buffer there until you're overspeeding the flaps, and that's not good. So you got to be really good at your airspeed control, and also because it's an old airplane, it doesn't have a stall warning horn, so you can run out of lift and not even know it. Whereas in a Cessna 172, they have a little audible like a little horn. And when you hear it means like, whoa, I'm running out of lift here. That's not good. Lower the nose. You don't get that in the old planes. So that's something to watch out. You really got to watch your approach speed here. And then you're going back to idle, same thing. And you're coming along flat like this. And then this is where it gets wonky, where you want to be touching down at a 3-point attitude at first. That's what I'm working on. And here, I'll draw my little airplane here too. Look at that. More perfect artist renditions of the DHC Chipmunk, DHC-1 Chipmunk. Yeah, so you want to land, you want to plunk it down right on the 3 wheels. Now, if you don't do that, which I'm guilty of, I thought maybe I was keeping the nose a little bit too. It was kind of in between, like a level flight and not the full 3-point attitude, kind of nose high ish. And so you land there, and I'm thinking I got all 3 wheels down, but I don't. The tail wheel can still go down. So it's like, oh, and once you're on the ground, you want to get the stick all the way back so you don't start flying again. But what I did was I wasn't quite there. So I was like, oh, I'll get that stick all the way back. And it went kind of got off the ground again, and I had no airspeed. so luckily Dave in the back just gunned the power on me, and we kind of took off again. And I thought I was down, but I wasn't. I was landing it all nice and smooth. And so one time I thought I screwed up, and I got the nose up. It was like way higher than is comfortable for a Cessna 172, but it's what it's supposed to be. And I'm still not used to that sight picture yet. And then, oh, hey, Shecky, welcome again. Yeah, so I'm looking out, and then I kind of thunked it down on the runway, and I thought, oh, that doesn't sound good. That's not good. And so Dave's like, yeah, that's perfect. What? So these things, one thing I didn't know is that if you're landing it, there's no shock absorber on the back wheel or anything either. It's just like wham, it's just hitting it. Just the rubber is any on the tire is any type of cushion at all. On that plane they have these little rubber. They look like little hockey pucks actually, and they got a stack of these little pucks in a tube. So when you land down, clunk, it squishes the rubber pucks, and then it doesn't bounce. So but yeah, so it just kind of went clunk, and oh, this is and you hear the plane vibrate too, because it's just like thin. It's like dropping an aluminum pop can. You'll hear it thing. Except it's a little bit bigger, so it's more of a lower frequency thunk. And bunk. Oh man, that's not good. But apparently that's the way it's supposed to be. And I wasn't forcing it on, or not forcing it on the ground, but I was being a little too smooth. You got to really plant it, not too hard, but just right. It's one of those things that you got to get used to. And anytime I was teaching people how to learn, or like I was teaching people how to land in other planes, like I got lots of hours teaching at 172s and Tomahawks and Cherokees, like a bunch of other planes. But we were teaching them how to land. You want to be, ideally it's pretty nice and smooth and stuff, but this one here, you thunk it down. And what's the other thing I was going to tell you about? Oh yeah. And so whenever the student's having a hard time learning how to land, it's I really relate that to I still have no idea how I land a plane. I've done thousands of landings, but I just don't know how I do it. Well, I know how I do it, but I always think, oh, this works. So it becomes after stressing and thinking, eventually it just becomes such a normal thing that it gets hard for you to describe every little step of the way, and then that has to become all fluid. So I liken it to years ago I got my truck driver license, and you're trying to back up an 18 wheeler, and you're like, what's this, man? Like, it's a mess. And so and then like you go, the difference between backing up a trailer, like maybe a utility trailer or a boat's on a trailer, and a semi, like backing those things up, the trailer gets all crooked and cockeyed and jackknifes and all this other stuff. And eventually these truck drivers, they just like back it in. So I was asking the truck drivers, hey, how do you do that? Well, you just do it. It's just like, so if you're going to be instructing somebody, you got to be able to kind of explain it a little bit more, which is kind of hopefully what I did here today. But not that's what your instructor really has to get to you, and you won't get it immediately. So that's why I'm not beating myself up too much, even though every pilot does beat himself up. But it's like it'll come, and each time I go up, there's one more thing that, like, okay, don't worry about thunking it on. Oh, okay, plunk, good. And then take it easy on slamming the stick up back too soon. Nah, it's little things. So that's the difference between landing 172, easy peasy. Oh, that's another thing. And once you plunk it down there, your job's not over, because you're still going almost flying speed, and you're on your center line. Here's my center line. And if you kind of forget about it, your tail can come up, and then things are getting a little less stable on you, and you could be going off the runway, all kinds of weird things. So you keep that down. And the other thing there too is with the Chipmunk, it's got a handbrake on it. So, and the handbrake works with differential pressure on your rudder pedals. So you got to go back to idle power. You come in and land, clunk, and your hand gets on the brake right away off of the throttle here and gets down there. And so that you can use your brakes to steer you if you have a big crosswind. Oh, and the other thing too is on this, you're always coming in with a side slip almost every time. 172, you can get lazy about that. So I don't know. Yeah, so this was like a little bit of a request from one of the viewers, and hopefully that kind of answered his questions. But yeah, it's like Cessna 172 is vanilla. This bad boy is tutti fruity. So it's pretty cool. All right. And yeah, there we go. It's a nice day out there today. And yeah, it was a little cold. I had to go bust up a robin. I busted up a robin's nest. Well, I mean, this robin was making a nest out there, and he was in my house, or like right where the wires go to the house, kind of thing. It's a nice flat place for them to make a nest. And I looked up, and there's well, actually, I noticed this robin who was in my backyard, and he was just kind of looking at me, and he had a string hanging out of his mouth, and he was thinking like, "Hey, man, get out of here," or something. He was sticking around. Usually they take off, and then it's like, what's he hanging around for? Oh, making a nest. So I had to bust that up this morning, and I'm gonna go check it after this too, because those birds, they can make nests. They can make nests in airplanes too. I know they see a little hole at the front of an airplane, air intake where the air filter is, and that's a nice little flat place to go in to start making a nest. And that's why you'll see a lot of airplanes, they have these little foam covers to go in the cowling, so the birds don't go and make nests in there. Those birds are just like pilots. They like flying around at airports too. Okay, so yeah, there we go. So that's about it for today. Today is Wednesday, so yeah, I'll be back on Friday. I'm trying to think what I was going to be talking about on Friday. I was going to give you a heads up, but I'm still kind of thinking about ideas of my I'm coming up on my 1 year YouTube live stream anniversary. It'll be like the first Monday in May. So I'm trying to think. I kind of want to do something special for that, but I'm not sure what. But anyways, you might get it. I've been thinking like live from my kitchen. Then I can cook up some food and multitask. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. So, yep, there we go. All right. So that's about it. Today is Wednesday, so I'll be back here. I'll be back here on Friday because I do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern. And we'll just kind of shut her down and have some nice safe landings out there, people. We'll check you out on Friday. Thanks for watching. Bye.